He woke with the taste of salt on his tongue and ash in his lungs, though no fire had burned in the night. The window of the Tower of the Hand stood open to the long blue smear of dawn and the stink of the city below, the wet fish reek from the fish market, the sour drift of night soil being tipped into alleys, the acrid smoke of tallow guttering in 1,000 poor candles still sputtering against the coming sun. Beneath it all was the sea. The gulls sawed the air with their thin cries, colorless in that hour when even the banners were no more than darker rags hung from spear tips. Ned Stark lay still and counted his heartbeats until the habit of years sent him to his feet. His knee gave him an honest pain that ran up the bone. He stood with it, breathed with it, then moved. He had slept in his doublet, and sweat had dried along his collar line in a salt crust. The night had not been kind. In the chair by the hearth, the fire had burned down to a clean oval of embers like eyes watching. On the table lay the book that had drawn him from bed and kept him from sleep, thick, with a cracked spine and the smell of oiled leather and dust, a dry old thing of painted arms and patient genealogies. He laid his palm on it. The skin of his hand was rough. The cover felt soft. The book had belonged to John Arryn. He had turned its pages until the names and lineages swam with his own breath. Under the book was a folded parchment, bound with a red ribbon and sealed with wax. The last writing of a king whose red moans still haunted Ned's ears. The seal bore the stag. The ink had blotches where Robert's hand had shaken. Protector of the realm, it named him, to serve until the rightful heir came of age. The word heir was there, and it was a word that would not sit easy in the mouth of the city before the day was finished. Ned stood, and the old knee spoke again. It had been struck on a king's stair all those years ago, and kingdoms had been built on worse pains. He washed at the basin, the water cool and clear, the mouthful he swillied tasting of copper. He poured another for his face, and another for the back of his neck. The tower room was too warm, though the sun had not yet found it. King's Landing clung to heat like a feverish child to a blanket. He pulled the shutters wider, and the morning air rolled up and in, damp as a tongue. A knock came, soft, as if the knocker feared to shatter something. Tomard entered without waiting, as Ned had told him to. The guard's beard had gone mostly white, but his eyes were younger than his years. "Lord, bring me Sergeant Kane and the men," Ned said, quietly, "and wake no more of the household than is needful. I'll want the litter within the hour." Tomard's brow furrowed. He looked to the book and the sealed parchment, and to the sword belt hanging from the chair. He said nothing. He was a winter man. He knew when not to spend breath. He bowed and left on soft soles. When the door had closed, Ned moved to the window and looked down on a city that had not chosen him. The red keep with its hard lines crouched on Aegon's hill like something that could uncoil. The keep's walls a pale rose in the first light, deceptively gentle. Beyond, the roofs of the city ran like a broken sea, their colors dulled by night's leaving, from the painted timber of Summerfair cottages to the black slate along the street of steel, where the first hammer blows were already ringing in the air. He could pick out, even from this height, the gilded dome of the great September of Baelor. He had not loved gods of stone, but he had learned to respect places where men gathered to bend their heads. The September would fill today with people who had not been invited to other rooms. Tradesmen and wives, the old and the lads and girls whose bones were still uncertain under their skin, the careful and the curious, and all those who would trade a morning's bread for the warmth of being where a thing happened. They would bring their eyes and ears. A lord's letter alone would not hold a city. The attention of 1,000 throats might. He turned from the window as Kane entered with 3 of the household guard at his back, their faces clean-shaven, their scalps bristling under plain steel caps. Men to carry a litter without complaint, men to lock a doorway against a tide if they could. Kane was thin and tall as a pike, and carried his years like a cloak shrugged back on his shoulders. He had a reedy voice that always sounded close to breaking. "The men are ready, my lord. The litter is at the base of the tower. Will you want the girls woken?" "Not yet." Ned had watched Sansa sleep long after the candles had burned low, her face like a child's, open as a white flower. Arya had been a tangle of limbs and hair in the bed beside her. A wolf cub chasing rabbits in her dreams, he would have wagered. He did not want to bring either of them into the cathedral of what he meant to do, not until the thing had begun and there was no going back. Guard their door, Cain. No one is to enter until I send. No one is to talk to them save Septim Ordain. If the queen calls for them, she is to be told that they are at their prayers. Cain's mouth twitched. The queen doesn't ask, he said, and adjusted the set of his iron cap. But I take your meaning, my lord. That is the trouble with queens, Ned said, fastening his sword belt with its plain northern buckle. They do not ask, and their sons do not listen. The sword fit his hip as if it had been made to him, though it had been made for a different man, by a different smith in a different winter. He felt the weight, the truth of it. He took up the book and tucked Robert's letter into it as a man might tuck a knife into bread, and then took both under his arm. In the hall, he met Varys's scent before he met Varys. It was a thing like crushed violets laid over something sour. The eunuch stood with his hands steepled, wearing pale lavender silk that dulled him to a drift of color. The morning damp frizzed his powder. He tilted his head the way a bird does. "You rise with the birds, Lord Stark." He said it as if it pleased him. What a virtue, to be awake while others sleep. Though sometimes one sees things in the dawn that one wishes in the dark to be untrue. "You have something to say to me, Lord Varys?" Ned asked. He looked beyond Varys to the open archway. Through it, a sliver of courtyard, the men of his household moving with the controlled care of those determined not to alarm. "I could say many things. That the kitchens had a fire in the small hours, put out before it took the bread, praise be. That 3 casks of Bravosi wine have gone missing from Ser Boros's favored stores. That Janos Slint met privately with Littlefinger after midnight. They spoke of coin, and of coin that becomes swords." "I know about coin that becomes swords," Ned said. "I have a book that is full of how it has been done." He showed a corner of John Aaron's book. His hand closed on it again quickly. "We go to the great September." Varys spread his fingers. So bold, so public. His lips moved in a shape not quite a smile. "Your heart is a Northman and your foot is already 1 step down the Seven's Isle. Allow me to say, before your other foot follows, that the September is a temple. And temples have their guards, and guards can be bought." "I have not forgotten that," Ned said. He had not forgotten that anything in this city could be bought, down to a mother's grief. If a man throws a torch in some alleys, the houses burn. If he throws one in the river, it dies with a hiss. We will see which the September turns out to be. "And the boy," Varys said. "The boy with the hair." He mimed smoothing hair back from his own pale forehead. "He will be in the September, with his mother's hand white on his sleeve. He will have the hound at his back and the Kingsguard to left and right. They need not be bought. Swords can be faithful to things other than men." "Let them be faithful to the law," Ned said. The eunuch rocked a little. "You do love that word." Ned thought of Robert, of roars of laughter and the slap of heavy hands. He thought of the way the king's breath had rattled, and the yellow of the lamplight in the pores of his skin. He thought of the taste of poppy on the air. "I have seen what comes when we do not love it enough." Varys tilted his head. This exposure, this laying bare. See that you do not expose your daughters to the wind when you strip the tree." His voice curled like smoke. He seemed to be speaking of nothing and everything. "Be quick if you can. Be clean if you cannot. I will be in the shadows at the September listening. The shadows carry news faster than trumpets." Ned went past him. He did not like to be warned, but he had learned what to do with warnings. He did not ignore them, and he did not let them own him. The castle stirred around him. In the kitchens, he passed 2 boys carrying a copper pot so large it could have swallowed Arya whole. Steam bellowed off it in clouds. A cat ran low along the base of the wall with a mouse limp in her mouth. A guard asleep on a bench startled and made as if to come to attention, then saw who it was and stood fully with a look like guilt. The corridors of the Red Keep had a way of looking empty from one vantage and then spilling 20 people around a corner when you took a step. He saw a maid's bare heel vanish around a doorframe like a fish's last flick. He saw a chorus of young men at their pikes look away from each other as he approached, guilty with some laughter he could not hear. The litter was plain, the sort of thing a cautious lord would use when he would not be seen to walk. Ned stepped into it because his knee would not bear him to the September and back, and he would not do the day's work with his jaw clenched against pain. Kane and Tomard took the front poles. Jax and Porther took the back. They were careful with him on the stairs, careful and slow, and he heard a rhythm in their breath that steadied him. The morning touched his face when they came into the courtyard, and a gull cut a white scythe across the slice of sky overhead as if it meant to reap clouds. The men did not look to him. They looked to their feet, and that was right. Down Aegon's high hill, the litter moved at a pace between haste and stateliness. They had put the Stark sigil on the sides, not a banner but the simple gray direwolf on a field of white leather, the edges stained dark where hands had worked them. People turned their heads to it as they always turned. Some touched fingers to the brown cords they wore around their wrists. Some spat aside, not at him but to make a space between his luck and their own. Some called to others. The word hand carried in that soft hour, a fishbone of sound caught in the net of the street. He passed the street of flour, where red-faced men were smashing up hard crusts for soaking, their arms like hams. He smelled yeast and heat. He passed a skinny man with a tray of skewered figs. A child took one and ran, and the man gave chase with an empty threat. He saw two men in half armor, the city watch, speaking by a fountain, sharing bread from the same cut hunk and not looking at the water. He saw an alley where three dogs fought over something too red to be anything but a butcher's waste. The litter's bearers kept their steps even. Near the base of the hill of Baylor, the crowd thickened. This was a day when the city dressed itself. Babies had clean cheeks, husbands had shaved. There were far more women than Ned had expected, more small folk than he might have guessed would dare to be close to power. It occurred to him then that power had been in their houses last night in the form of rumor and in their dreams in the form of fear. It drew them as thunder draws men to the doorways, to watch for lightning. Ned signaled the men and the litter angled through sideways and forward, the bearers speaking to people with their chests and knees, making room with apologies instead of elbows. The great September rose white and faceted ahead, its 7 crystal towers pricking up like a hand offered to the sky. The front steps were already busy. Silent sisters moved over them in gray like smoke, and septons in white, and strongboxes carried by sweating lads. A fragrance of beeswax floated thickly in the morning, overtopping the city's sourness, and Ned found his breath going deeper because of it, despite himself. At the base of the steps, Ser Barristan Selmy waited as if he had grown from the stone. He wore plate polished to a mirror, a cloak of white as clean as winter sun, a face that would have been gentle if not for the line of his mouth. He had taken his helmet off. In his hands, it looked like something he would use with the care a father shows lifting his sleeping child. There were other Kingsguard nearby at their distances. Ser Meryn Trant with his soft mouth and lizard eyes. Ser Boros Blunt with the wet shape of a man who loved sauces. Ser Ares Oakhart who was young enough to be proud of his shoulders. Ned saw a hound too, though he was not sworn to the white. Sandor Clegane leaned against a pillar with his weight on one hip, an empty patience in his half-seared face that made it perhaps the most honest thing in sight. "Ned," Barristan said, and bowed without bending too much. He did a thing with his eyes that was like a question and like a greeting both. "The great September is open to you." "I need more than that, Ser Barristan," Ned said from the litter. He did not get out yet. "I need the September to be mine for an hour." "The September is the gods," Barristan said. "The rest of us borrow it. But I have spoken with the High Septon. He will grant that the first words spoken loud belong to the Lord Protector." His eyes flicked to the book, then to the sword and back. "If such is your own oath." "It is," Ned said. He felt the weight of Robert's letter again under the book's leather. "And if those words anger some? If the Queen calls me traitor to the crown and asks that I be taken?" Barristan lowered his gaze and raised it again. "Men will ask who is the crown in that moment. A king is a fact. A crown is a promise. I am sworn to the one and to the other. Be careful, Lord Stark, to speak in favor of both. "Would you have me whisper?" Ned asked. "No. I would have you tell the truth like a man placing iron on an anvil. Hold it firm. Let the blows fall where they must. But keep your fingers away." He made a small motion with the helmet, a very little thing that was as close to a smile as the old knight would give. "Your daughters. In the tower," Ned said. He did not let his eyes move toward the hill or the keep. "And better there. A wise house has quiet rooms. Remember it," Barristan said. He stepped aside. "The queen is here. The boy is here. The city will be here by the time you stand in the light." Ned came down from the litter because the steps demanded walking. The stone was polished smooth by so many feet that it had the sheen of old water, but it was not slick. He climbed with the slow stubbornness of a man who had walked in snow up to his thighs. The September swallowed him, and the light broke into 7 streams through the colored panes of the towers, falling in fans on the tiled floor and the pale walls. Beeswax candles in racks stood like small forests. The air was clean enough to make him think of new bread. And in that air was a rustle of silks and a susurrus of breath and the shuffling footprint of 1,000 eyes. At the far end, on the dais below the painted statues, a chair had been set that was not a throne. No iron, no dragons, but it had been swathed in crimson and backed by lions. Cersei sat there. The crown she wore was a circlet, not the heavy thing that seemed made to fall and crush, and it gathered her hair back as if it meant to hold sunlight. Joffrey stood just to her right hand, slightly forward, slightly alone, in a doublet with threads of gold that had the insolent glitter of coins spilled on a table. He had a sword at his hip, and his own hand on it in the way of boys. His face in that light was a thing carved too hard in a soft material. All his mother's beauty and his own impatience warred there. To the left of the chair, Maester Pycelle waited with his heavy chain, each link pulling on his thin neck. His beard had trapped crumbs he had not noticed. To the right, Peter Baelish wore a smile like a blade laid under a napkin. Varys was where? Ned did not look for him. He would be where the words traveled when they left this hall. Renly stood in shadow against a pillar, with Loras Tyrell just behind him like a tale whispered in another room. Renly's mouth had a tightness to it that could have meant anger or hunger. The High Septon stood ahead in his rich front of cloth and gold, a man with a face the color and calm of bread. He lifted his hands and the murmuring ran backward and up into the towers like doves startled and gone. He waited and all waited with him. "This day," he said, and his voice carried easily. "This day we gather to pray for the soul of a king, and to ask for peace in the land that he loved in the ways he loved it." He paused and looked at Robert's widow and Robert's boy with that steady gaze. "There are matters of law and of lineage. The gods love law. We love law because without it we are wind and winter. The last will and words of King Robert Baratheon are to be spoken, as is right." Lord Eddard Stark, Hand of the King, stepped forward.
Ned stepped.
The knee complained in a plain voice. He did not answer it. He folded back the cover of John Arryn's book with hands that did not shake, and he slipped Robert's letter from it. He did not look at the Queen. He looked at the parchment. The words were no better for staring, but he owed them attention. He lifted his head. "When I came to this city, I came because my king asked me to. He was my friend. Before he was my king. He was both to me when he died." He let his eyes touch Robert's boy then. Joffrey breathed faster. He was trying to be very tall. Robert Baratheon set down his last will. These are words he spoke with his last strength and sealed with his own hand. "He named me protector of the realm until his rightful heir should take the throne in manhood." "A fine thing," Cersei said. Across him, soft like warm milk turned. The remark felt like a stone tossed into a lake a long way away. It sent ripples. She had not asked to speak. It did not matter. A fine thing, that the hand should repeat a dying man's words. But the boy is here. The boy is a man. Joffrey took a breath as if preparing to shout. Ned moved his eyes away from him and back to the letter. "The law says a man is not a man at this age. There is a protector. The law names who is king. It is not a soft law. The law is what the king says, Joffrey said. He lifted his chin and it trembled with the weight of its own desire. I am the king, I say. You are not crowned, Barristan said, without turning, without lifting his voice. You are a boy in a gold shirt. A king is not a word one says because one wishes to. It is a bond one makes with the realm and takes upon one's head. Like a weight. Put on the weight or be quiet. A hush like silk being pulled over a table fell on the floor. Joffrey's mouth opened and closed. Cersei's fingers whitened where they lay on the side of the chair. Ser Meryn shifted, and the metal of his armor hissed a little. Littlefinger's smile did not move, but his eyes flexed like hands. Ned did not raise his voice. Behold the letter. He held it up. I was to protect until the rightful heir came of age. The rightful heir is Stannis Baratheon, Lord of Dragonstone, the king's older brother. He felt the shift in the hall. Not one motion but 1,000 small ones, breaths and swallowed words. A woman's sudden intake of air, a man's damped curse. He set the letter on the lectern before him. He laid the big book beside it. He opened the book. The realm has lived on lineage and on law. My Lord Aaron, who was hand before me, read this book in his last months and asked questions. He asked what color the hair of the Baratheons is, and what happens when a lion lies with a stag, and what happens when a stag lies with a horse. He found one answer again and again. Baratheons are black of hair. He turned pages slowly. The paper made a soft sound, a paper speech like leaves falling. The king's brothers have black hair. His bastards have black hair. He turned another page. His finger rested on the words because it steadied him. The queen's children are of golden head. All three. Not one curl is dark. A woman in the back said something that broke on the edge of inaudible. A man near her shushed. The hound raised a hand and examined his nails with the disinterest of a cat. Black of hair, Ned said simply. The king's get is black of hair. This is what the realm has seen since Orys married the Durrandon girl. This is what the small folk have seen when a Baratheon takes a fisher's daughter to his bed and she is brought to term. This is what the gods have seen. Black of hair, brown of eye. The king's children are not the king's. The law's word bastard is not my cruelty but the realm's naming. There was no sound at all now in the first ranks of the crowd. Far back there were whispers, and the whispers had the quality of wind through brush. The queen did not rise. She did not need to. She seemed to grow taller without moving. You dare slander the king with this filth? She said in a voice that made men remember that they had a mother once, and that their mother might be wounded. You put a dead man's sigh in your mouth and call it law. You speak of a book. I can open a book and find anything. You think a book will stand you between myself and my son? Ned remembered a winter night at Winterfell, when his father had shown him a sword and told him a thing about truth. He remembered Frost furring a horse's ear, and the way a man's eyes fold down when he hears his sentence. He remembered the first time he had seen Catelyn's mouth after a birth. He had the sense then that all that he had lived did not prepare him for the way Cersei's eyes were watching him, unblinking, like a cat regarding something under a bush that it means to take. I think law will, he said. I think a will sealed by a king's hand will. I think honor will. And if none of that will, then I think nothing will, and we must stop pretending we are anything but beasts. He heard a faint intake of breath from Renly's pillar. He heard the metal shift in a dozen places. He saw Peter Baelish's tongue wet his lips. He saw Maester Pycelle's hand go to his chest as if something had fluttered there. He saw Ser Barristan turn his head a fraction, as if to bring another ear to bear. He saw Varys at last, in a shadow behind a pillar, his eyes like damp coals. Cersei's mouth flattened. Janos, she said, and did not look toward the doors. The great September's doors were tall enough for giants to walk through, and in that moment they contributed their own drama. They were a long way away, too far for men to come in and arrive quickly. Nonetheless, one felt the word going, felt it like a thrown stone. Ned felt the men around him shift. The crowd drew back, then leaned, then settled. Ser Barristan lifted his chin. The old knight's voice slotted the hall like a clean blade. "Kingsguard," he said. "To me." Ser Meryn looked to Cersei first, eyes sliding just left of her shoulder, gauging. Ser Boros pretended not to. Ser Aerys came like a hound at heel. Ser Mandon Moore, white-faced with that tallowy look that made him seem a candle waiting to be lit, did not move, but his hand went to the throat of his cloak. The hound straightened and moved one step forward, only one, and that was enough to make a space around him. Cersei rose, and the crimson of her gown enflamed. "Seize him," she said, and her voice did not rise. It cooled. "Seize this man who slanders the king, who calls my son a—" She did not speak the word. She recoiled from the weight of it even as she threw it away. "For the good of the realm." Barristan raised a gauntlet hand. The gesture was more command than any shout. "No man will lay a hand on the hand of the king in a holy place." He said it for the men in white around him and for the poor in the far ranks. "Not while I draw breath. We are not sellswords. We are knights sworn to the law and to the protection of the king, and today the law says the hand is protector. That is the word of the dead king, and until a new king is made by crown and by the realm, it stands. If the queen will charge him, she may do so before the council and the realm, with the high septon as witness, not by a cry in the gods' hall." A man near the door laughed suddenly. A single bark quickly strangled. The laugh ran around the hall and died. Joffrey's face went the color of a bruise ripening. He tried again to speak. Cersei lay a hand on his sleeve and pressed. The high septon lowered his eyes and raised them. "Gods have little taste for oaths broken within their walls," he said, in a voice that warmed and cooled both. "There are forms. Let us follow them. The Lord Protector has spoken. He has made a claim of law and of evidence. Let those who would answer him answer with the same. I propose a day and a night for fasting, for each noble house represented to council with its sworn men, for the small folk to pray, and on the morrow we will reconvene and speak as a realm. In the meantime, the hand will keep the king's seal, and the crown will remain upon its cushion." He gestured to the small table where something lay under white linen like a sleeping bird. The gesture was graceful. The cloth hid iron. Cersei's lips parted. Ned thought she might spit or speak fire. Instead she smiled, like a knife. "Very well," she said. "The gods love forms. Let us wrap ourselves in them." Janos! The doors of the September were full of men in half-armor now, and those men were in gold. Janos Slint came at their head like a man used to walking through mud. Deliberate, heavy with purpose, making the ground around him something that yielded. He had a good breastplate and a bad temper and a new ring the size of a grape on his forefinger. He looked at the crowd as if it were an annoyance, and at the Kingsguard as if they were furniture he had to move around. His men fanned out. Barristan did not raise his voice. He did not lower it either. "No steel bared in the September," he said. It was a gentle thing, addressed to anyone's mother. Slint's men paused, then kept moving. They were men who took their orders from coin more than from God. "Ser Barristan," Ned said, and the old knight's eyes came to him. He saw then that Barristan was far from calm. Calm was gone from the man, carefully set under his foot. What held him upright was not calm but something harder. He nodded almost imperceptibly. Ser Aerys pivoted, the white cloak floating around his ankles like slow water. Varys drifted sideways through the press as if the crowd parted for him. "Lord Slint," he murmured, and laid a hand that was not a hand on the man's sleeve. "The High Septon has spoken." Slint's face crumpled with contempt and steadied with calculation. "I hear a lot of talk," he said, to no one, to everyone. "The Queen says to secure the hand. The Queen is the Queen. The boy is the king." "The boy is a boy," the hound said, not loudly, and his scar did a thing like a smile. "The boy is a day from a crown and a year from a beard." A small laugh broke somewhere and turned into a cough. The sound died on the air like an arrow striking leather. Ned put his hand flat on the open book. He did not lift it, did not make a fist of it. He felt the rough on his palm. "Ser Janos," he said, "do not break the peace of this place." The High Septon himself has called for counsel, and you would do violence? If I am to be charged, charge me as the law says. Do not act as a butcher in a temple." He heard the northern in his voice and did not smooth it. He saw, distantly, Littlefinger watching with the interest of a man who had set two birds to fighting and now wished to see which would peck the other's eye. Slint's men hesitated, feet making small noises on the tiles, armor rasping softly. Hesitation was the most dangerous thing in a room like this. It invited purpose from anyone who stepped into it. Cersei stepped. "Secure the hand," she said again, and her voice now made the beeswax seem chilled. "I will answer any god who cares to question me." "You will answer me," Barristan said, and the old man moved in a way that made the breath catch in Ned's chest because it was beautiful. He flowed to his place one pace before the chair, very small motions, economical, a man who had spent his life learning to move swords and to move men. "If you command swords in this place against the law, I will set my own sword against yours. We can see whose oath the seven prefer." For one heartbeat, it looked as if steel would leap free in every hand. Joffrey's breath came ragged. His fingers jumped on the wire-wrapped hilt of his sword. Ser Meryn's lips drew back from his teeth. The hound was very still, and somehow that stillness was louder than noise. Maester Pycelle swallowed, and the too-big chain rode on his collarbone like a burden he had not the back to carry. The High Septon raised both hands. "Peace," he said. The word was simple and hard. A sound like rain went through the room, the poor all at once, whispering prayers and telling themselves that this was not the day they would be trampled. "No swords bared, no hands raised. We will keep this day from blood. Lord Slint, you will station your men outside the doors. Ser Barristan, your men will stand at each of the 7 ways. The Queen will repair to the royal apartments. The Lord Protector will remain in the September with a guard of his household and one sworn white cloak to prevent misplacements." He let that word land softly, like a veil. "The realm will do as the realm always does in the face of trouble. Eat, pray, and decide." There was a moment when nothing decided anything. Then, like ice cracking under weight but not breaking, men moved a fraction and did not die. Slint spat, brown and loud, onto the floor at the threshold of the September. A silent sister who had been standing there with downcast eyes looked up, and for 1 second Ned saw in her the girl she had been, the girl who would have clout a boy for such filth. Then she was a gray figure again. Slint jerked his head. His men fell back with bad grace. Cersei went past Barristan too close, too slow, the brush of her gown whispering over the polished plate of his greave. And in that whisper there was more contempt than in any shout. She took Joffrey's arm and drew him with her. He tried to resist for show. He went because he must. The hound slid after them, a shadow with a sword in it. Ser Meryn and Ser Boros followed like loaded tables on rough stone. Littlefinger remained where he was and made a small show of looking for a place to assist. When none presented itself, he settled to watch, expression bland and careful, a courtier counting breaths. Renly's eyes were wide with something like hope and like worry both. Loras tilted his head to speak a word into Renly's ear and made his curls move silkily rather than like hair. Peter Baelish's smile thinned further, as if stretched over bone. When the Queen had gone and the Goldcloaks had taken up their sulk at the outer doors, the September remained full, but the sound had changed. It was as if the room had exhaled. Ned found that he had not been breathing. He corrected that. He set his hand on the book again and thought of a maester with a hawk's face and a nest of papers, and how sometimes answers in this world were soft words written in a slow hand, and sometimes they were edges. "Eat," the High Septon murmured to him, and expanded a hand slightly as if to encourage a plant that had grown crooked. "Drink. There is an antechamber. Take the white cloak the Lord Commander offers. Keep one man you trust, and do not go into any side door with anyone who is not your wife or your god." "I have both of those far off," Ned said. "Pray then. The gods are nearer than wives on some days," the old priest said, and smiled with weary good humor. "And harder to escape." Ser Barristan came to him when the room began to empty in small threads. The old knight took off his helmet and held it against his side. He did not embrace Ned. He inclined his head instead, as if they were in a yard with their bones to look to. "You will want a man. I will want you," Ned said. Barristan blinked, and then did a tiny, careful thing with his mouth that promised no one anything. "I am the king's man," he said. "You said you were the laws." "They are not always apart," Barristan said. "Sometimes they are the same man. The trick is knowing which day it is." He lifted a hand and called one of the white cloaks with the gesture the way a craftsman calls a tool he knows will fit the work. Ser Ares Oakhart came, with the eagerness of a man who had not yet learned the cost of eagerness. "Stay with Lord Stark," Barristan told him. "Do not be a hero. Be a door that will not open." Oakhart bowed, pleased to be a door. Ned nodded to him, grateful to be guarded even by an ideal. He took the book and the king's letter, and he moved through the September to the little room with a single window on a walled court where a tree grew with too little light and yet had leaves. Cain and Tomard came with him, shedding the September from their shoulders like dust, and set themselves outside the door with their arms crossed. In the antechamber, the noise of the September beyond was muffled to a hum. On a low table, a small plate of apricots waited beside cheese white and young as spring, and bread. Ned had not thought to be hungry. He put a piece of bread in his mouth and chewed it until it was tasteless, because he knew that the body must be tended even when the mind would rather rush. He drank wine, not much, enough to wake him. He could not pray. He had words for the gods, and they were the wrong words. He thought instead. He saw where paths ran. Some were bright and ran straight and were illusions. Some bent and bent again and were better for that bending. He saw Stannis, stern as a law written in stone, on Dragonstone surrounded by sullen sea. He saw Renly, bright with green gardens behind his eyes. He saw Tywin Lannister in the Riverlands with banners like a field on fire and the coolness of a man who played long games. He saw Robb in the north, not a boy and not yet a man. He saw Catelyn's hands and missed them. He saw Sansa and Arya, and he saw danger hunt their names around the city like dogs with their noses down. There came a soft scratch at the door. Oakhart turned his head like a crane. "Who comes?" "Baelish," said a voice as smooth as anything money had ever been smoothed by. Ned nodded to Oakhart. The young knight opened the door only as much as it needed opening. Littlefinger slid in through it with the assurance of oil poured on water. "Bold, bold," he said, with admiration in his tone that did not reach his eyes. "I once saw a Braavosi acrobat take 2 wine cups from a sleeping bear without waking him. Your trick was more quiet and more remarkable. And with better wine." "I did not do it for applause," Ned said. He set the bread down and the plate of apricots aside. He did not offer them. "No," Littlefinger said, and came in close enough to lower his voice without whispering. "You did it because you are a good man. Good men love to test themselves against things they think harder than they are. The law, for instance. Queens. Cities. It is charming, like watching bears play at ladies' dance." "What do you want, Peter?" Ned asked. "I want what I always want, to know where the lines are being drawn, to ensure my feet do not become trapped in any of them, to fashion a little coin into respect, a little respect into power, and a little power into freedom. But on your particular day, Ned, I want to keep you alive enough to be useful. The Queen will not have left the September to weep. She will not have gone to stroke the boy's hair. She will have gone to turn over pieces on a board and to buy men whose prices she already knows." "She bought Slint," Ned said. "Oh, Slint was already sold. He came into this world with a price pinned to his ear. He rose because there were men who liked his stink. I imagine he will go down for the same reason." Littlefinger looked toward the window and the tree with too little light. "There will be offers, Ned. To me, to Varys, to anyone who can whisper into a particular ear. Will you make an offer of your own?" "I have made mine," Ned said. He tapped the book with one forefinger. "To the realm." Littlefinger's smile curled. "The realm's purse is empty more often than not, pays late, and it is a poor patron, the realm. It lacks gratitude, forgets names. I much prefer queens or old houses with vaults." "You will do what you must," Ned said. You always have. I will, Littlefinger said, and for a moment his face was free of all pretense. And Ned saw then the boy who had known Catelyn and had bled for her in the snow. As will you, Stark of Winterfell. And I wish, God's help me, I wish we wanted the same thing, and that there were only one way to get it. He dipped his head and was gone, as quickly and smoothly as he came, leaving the smell of applewood smoke from some unseen brazier trailing him. The day lengthened. It did not grow easier. Outside, the bells of a dozen septs sounded one after another, not in harmony but without malice. People moved through the great September in waves that rose and fell, murmurs breaking as titilines break, bringing news that was not news and truths that were not truth. Varys came and went like weather. Renly came with lines carved in his face where he smiled and did not smile at once. Stannis will expect you to hold, he said in a low voice, and Ned would have smiled if the subject did not bitter his mouth. Stannis expects everything to hold because it should, and because if it doesn't he can hit it with his will until it does. He is the rightful heir, Ned said. He is a hard man, Renly countered. He will make a hard king. There is a famine in the reach of laughter, and he will not feed it. The realm prefers bread, Ned, but it needs salt and it wants music. If I speak to the Tyrells, if I speak to men who speak to men, what if another name were placed in the air? A Kinderkraun? A crown the small folk would cheer for as well as obey? A crown that could be in this city before your knee has finished its prayers. The law, Ned began. Says Stannis, Renly finished, and his mouth went unhappy. And Stannis would see us both dead for conspiring to discuss the possibility that the law might not be the only thing. Very well. He lifted his hands and then dropped them. You have made what stand a Stark can make. He glanced at Loras, at the green thoughts behind Loras's smile. I will take the road open to me. The city is a cup with too many hands on it. I would drink in the country. His eyes found Ned's again, and for a moment they were two men with things in their hands that were too heavy. Guard your girls. I know, Ned said. Do you? Renly asked softly. Do any of us? He left with Loras like a green shadow. Varys came in his place as if the two men traded on a hinge. We are all to sleep and wake and speak with clean mouths on the morrow, Varys said. That is what the High Septon has made us promise. In the meantime, the Queen plays it quiet. She sends no men, orders no heads struck off. She is as docile as a lamb and about as likely to butt you when your back is turned. What of the city? Ned asked. The city eats and talks and lays bets, Varys said. The Street of Silk knows already. The Street of Smiths will know by midday. The Street of Seeds will not care until they see a cart with prices on it change. He cocked his head. If I may suggest a word to a wise man, when men come to you with pledges, take fewer than they offer, and make rooms where your girls can be moved like water in a basin if the wind blows from a different side than you expect. I will move them to the September, Ned said. If the September is peace. Peace is a costume, but it is good cloth, Varys said, and bowed without bending his head so much that he could not see. He flowed out of the room like smoke from a lamp. As the light slanted and warmed and the sept's colored rays shifted onto different tiles, Ned sent Tomard with a message to Cain to bring the girls. He wrote the message himself, a simple line. Come to the great September and attend your prayers. He did not put his name. He did not write more than needed. Tomard took the scrap and went with the movement of a man trying not to let urgency show its ankles. While he waited, Maester Pycelle came shambling, smelling of fennel and old ink, with his chain making a complaint about gravity in small metal wines. The old man bowed and puffed. Lord Stark, pray forgive an old man his speed. The joints, like old doors. He smiled as if they shared a private joke. I bring you a copy of, the document, the list of words the king made, should your parchment be misplaced. He offered a roll of thin vellum tied with green string. The Baratheon stag was inked on it in black, with an attempt at vigor that only made it look sad. Ned did not like the old man's eyes. He took the vellum nonetheless. "Your care is noted," he said. "Care is a thing the old have," Pycelle murmured. "It is what we trade for speed. I pray you will be careful, Lord Street. The Queen has a lion's heart." "I have known lions," Ned said, not unkindly. "I know what makes them dangerous." "Do you?" Pycelle's eyelids lowered, then rose. "They are dangerous when they are hungry. They are more dangerous when they are full." He bowed again and made a show of pressing a hand to his chest. "The heart is not what it was. The law is not what it was. The realm is not what it was when I was a boy. We are none of us what we were when we were boys," Ned said. When the maester had gone, he wished, for a moment, that he had been less civil. There are men who take courtesy into their hand like a knife and use it on you. It was near to midday when Cain returned with Sansa and Arya. They came into the little chamber with that different air each had, and the difference made Ned's throat close. Sansa had dressed herself with care, her hair tamed and coiled, her pale blue gown making her look as if she had been carved from the same light falling through the September's windows. Her eyes were very large and very trying. Arya had lost a ribbon and gained a smudge, and somehow, of all the people in King's Landing, she alone seemed to have gone out and climbed something that morning. Her eyes tracked everything first, then came to him. "You sent for us?" Sansa said, as if she were demonstrating that she could speak in the correct order. "We were told we were to pray." "You are," Ned said. He took each of them by the shoulder, his big hands gentle. "And to listen for once, and to keep your tongues behind your teeth." He met Arya's lifted chin. "Even you, especially you." "What's happening?" Arya asked. "The whole city is thick as stew. A man sold me a sweet and said he'd give me another if I'd tell him what you'd say. He's outside the September with a tray like a ship." "You took the sweet," Sansa said sharply. "Only to spite him," Arya said, and then, to Ned's surprise, she colored, as if she was, for half a breath, ashamed. "And because it was honey." Ned drew them closer. "The Queen will say things today," he said. "She will say things that will make others say things. Your job is to say nothing. If men speak to you, let Cain answer. If a woman speaks to you, let Septa Mordain answer. If our name is used, let it set like flour in water and sink to the bottom of the bowl. We will skim it off later." Sansa's fingers twined together. Will the prince be crowned?" Her eyes made soft shapes of hope and fear both. "We are to be wed. He is to be king." Ned's breath left him. He saw then the shape of the hurt he would lay on her and wished he could lay it more gently. "No," he said. He could not say more without breaking something. "This is a day of law. The law must be. We must not all die by noon, Sansa." She went white, which took her blue dress and snapped it too bright. "You will not," she said, and then she stopped, because she had seen something in his face that frightened her. Arya looked at Septa Mordain, then at Ser Ares Oakhart, then at the book on the table and the sealed letter. "What did you do?" she asked, not with accusation but with interest, as if she was asking what he had been carving with his knife. "Did you stick someone?" "I used words," he said. "Words?" Arya said with deep contempt. "You can't parry with words." "You can," Ned said. "You can parry a sword with a word if you speak it from the right place and the right time. You can't cut with one, though. Not most days." He touched her cheek and let his hand rest there. "Listen to the prayers. In case anyone should ever ask you what we did on the day we did not die." The girls sat between Septa Mordain and the wall. Cain stood like a painted thing beside them. Longclaw? No, that was not his sword. He corrected himself. His own plain steel leaning against his boot. Tomard took the other side and let the weight of his gardener's hands rest in front of him like he meant them to be seen to be empty. The afternoon moved on like a slow-dragged net. Men came, men went. There was a scuffle near the doors that subsided quickly into speech. Later, Ned learned it had been a man insisting his wife be allowed to have a look at the crown in its cloth. There was a sudden spike of lamp smell when someone knocked a candle. There was a moment when a child cried. The child was allowed to cry and then quieted. There was gossip. and the gossip had the quality of water poured back and forth from one jar to another. The shapes of the jars changed, but the water remained water. At dusk, the city's light took on that peculiar thick warmth that made the dust in it glow like seen breath. The High Septon gathered men with his eyes. Cersei returned with Joffrey and her party, and this time there were more Lannister men at her back. The King's Guard had the look of men who had calculated their angles and would stand at them until the pillars fell. Renly was not there. Varys was. Littlefinger was. Maester Pycelle was. The small folk were. The city had come to be present at its own choosing, and it waited. On this day, the High Septon said, "We will speak with tongues that are not forked, and we will put the flesh of our arguments on the bones of law. Lord Eddard Stark has spoken a claim. The Queen Cersei Lannister will answer." Cersei stepped forward, her bearing so composed that it made the floor look clumsy. She did not touch the cloth over the iron. She did not touch her son, though he was close enough that her sleeve almost brushed his. She lifted her chin and became her father's daughter. "The hand of the king accuses me of adultery and treason, and accuses my children of bastardy. The hand of the king accuses my brother Jaime of allying with me, which is false and vile. The hand of the king accuses the king of ignorance at his own trial." She did not look at Ned. She looked over his shoulder as if a more interesting man stood there. "I answer him thus. My son Joffrey is the son of King Robert Baratheon. My daughter Myrcella is the daughter of King Robert Baratheon. My son Tommen is the son of King Robert Baratheon. I have lived a faithful wife. Any man who says otherwise speaks sedition. The king's will is a thing, but the king's word in life was another. In life he named his son to follow him, and he lived to name men to carry out his will. Lord Eddard would carve a kingdom into pieces on the table of the September with a book for a knife. I will not let him." She folded her hands. It was an unkindly gesture, though the hands were delicate. "If he has proof beyond rumor and the color of hair, let him bring it. The realm is not a whisper. The realm is stone." Ned looked at the book. He remembered names and marriages, who begot whom and when, like a line of gears, teeth clicking, the sound of mechanism. He remembered the face of the boy in the armorer's shop, the one who had been surprised that Ned would see him, the one who had Robert's mouth without Robert's laugh, and he felt, abruptly, foolish. He could not bring Gendry here with a string on his wrist. Even if he had him in the hall, the city would say, "A boy." The city would say, "A bastard born in a bowl." The city would say many things. He had the will and he had the law. He had hair in a book. Would they be enough? He lifted his head. "Maester Pycelle," he said, and the old man inclined with a wheeze. "Bring us the will." Pycelle went with slow care. He took the parchment from the table where it lay like a curled animal. He held it as if it might bite. He gave it to the High Septon, who broke the wax with his thumb. The sound was small but carried. The old priest read, and his lips formed the words, and then he spoke them aloud. He did not look at anyone when he was done. "The will is as the Lord Protector said. A man wrote it who thought of the realm. We do not discard such words for convenience, nor for fear. The law says we honor such things the day they are made. The law does not know sorrow. The law does not know a mother's breast. The law does not know the color of hair, but the law knows itself." The poor murmured with relief. They did not know what comfort they had heard, but they knew that a thing had been affirmed by a man who knew what words were for. Cersei's nostrils flared. "We will take this to the council," she said. "We will vote as the council does. We will have names written and sealed. The council is a knife," Varys murmured to no one. "It cuts what is put before it." "The council is the body that moves the realm's limbs," the High Septon said, with the patience of a man who has taught children their letters past the point of tears. "It acts for the head when the head is thinking. It is, dear gods, my lady, it is a thing you know well enough. You will bring your charge against Lord Stark there, if you do more than say his words are unkind. Until then, in this September, I declare peace by the Seven." He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. No man will lay hand upon the Lord Protector. No man will draw steel within this holy place. No order of the realm will be given within these walls save mine. So let it be in the sight of the gods who are our only judges." Cersei smiled, and in spite of everything, Ned admired her. "Very well," she said. "We will be lawful. We will be devout. We will do as the gods and the law ask us, and our rewards will be the better for it." She put her hand on Joffrey's shoulder and squeezed, and the boy did not shake her off because he wanted to appear as if he wished to. "Come, Joff, you have prayers to mutter for your father. We will not shame ourselves in the sight of the city." They began to go, the Queen's party like a red line drawn from end to end of the hall. The gold cloaks at the door straightened and tried to look like honor, and almost succeeded. Ned watched them go. He let his breath out. He had made the day reach the evening. That was something. When darkness came and lamps bloomed in their tall iron stands, the September felt smaller. The colored panes were simply black now, the light from within threw the statues into a relief that made their painted faces different, less kind. The poor thinned, going home to their bread and their talk. The nobles thinned, going home to their wine and their talk. The chittering of whispers rose as if with the moths. Ned remained, with Ser Ares at his shoulder and his men at the door. The book lay open. Robert's words lay beside it. The law lay like a cold blanket over the warm bodies of fear in the hall. It was then that Sansa came and laid her head on his arm where it rested on the table. She had not done that since she was very small. She was tall now, nearly to his shoulder, and yet at that moment he knew the weight of her skull from the years when he had carried it on his palm. "Father," she said, "I will do as you say. I will be quiet. I will be still. But you must not send Joffrey away. Please. He is, her throat worked. He is my betrothed. I love him." He would have laughed if he could have found a breath that would not be cruel. He put his hand on her hair. It was smooth and smelled faintly of some perfume. Lemon? The Septa had decided on. "Child," he said, meaning nothing of the nothing that word meant and all of what it meant. "Child." She lifted her head with some suddenness, as if she had made a choice. "I will go to the Queen and beg her," she said. Her mouth was set. "She can be kind. She will understand if I tell her." "No," Ned said, so quickly that the word came like a slap and she flinched from it. He was sorry instantly. "No," he said again, and the second time there was compassion in it and sorrow. "We will not go to the Queen for anything. Not for mercy, not for kindness. The Queen has none for us. She is always so." Sansa struggled because she had no words for something that had only ever been a part in a play until today. "She is beautiful," she said finally, almost like a child inviting a Marv Elle into the room. "She will be merciful if I kneel." "The beautiful have many things," Ned said. "Mercy is not always one of them." He moved his thumb along her temple, felt the smallness of her. He looked over her at Arya, who had been listening, as he'd known she would be. She looked back at him with eyes that belonged to a girl and to another thing that would not be a girl for long, and he knew that this would not be a house he could keep inside of walls much longer. The thought frightened him and eased him both. Outside, the bells began again, softer now. The last offices of the day whispered into the night. The sea sounded louder, as if the city's mouth had closed and the sound had rushed in to fill the quiet. Ned thought of Winterfell, of wolves and of snow falling so gently you could not hear it but only felt it as a change in the soul. He thought, unexpectedly, of Jon, of what he would be thinking at the wall now, of how many nights in this city and that place would be the same and not the same. He laid his hand on the book again. It seemed to him then that there was a current running under the floor of the September, a slow river made of law and of custom and of fear, and that he was standing in it up to the hip. He laughed, quietly at himself. He did not sleep, nor did Cersei, in another place, and in the time between those two wakefulnesses 4 men met in a room with a window that looked toward the river. They were Varys and Littlefinger and Janos Slint and a man with a cloak with a lion worked into it in gold. They spoke in the way men speak when they each think they own the room, and they each think that two of the others think it belongs to the third. They decided that on the morrow, when the High Septon had done his speech and the council had done its writing, there would be a moment when the Lord Protector would step out into light, and in that moment stones would tumble and someone would cry fire. No one would draw steel in the September. No vow would be broken in the sight of the gods. A crowd would move. Swords would be bared half a street away, under no painted god's eyes. The hand would be carried, as the city carries a thief, to a place where deeds could be done with doors between them and holiness. They did not use the word trap, because words have weight and sometimes bring down their own rafters. They did not use the word murder, because none of them wished to hear it said aloud in his own voice. They did not raise cups to it. They only made a plan and sent a boy with a message and set gold in a hand, and nodded to each other and went different ways. The city slept because cities must or they die. Men with coins in their purses and iron in their hands did not. Dawn came with gulls again. Ned's knee ached like a prophecy. The High Septon's mouth was dry at the corners. Sansa wore the same blue and did not look at Joffrey when he came into the hall, and that was perhaps the bravest thing she had ever done. Arya held her tongue, which was perhaps the hardest. Barristan had not slept. Nor, Ned thought, had Ser Mandan Moore, whose waxy face looked more than usually like a candle after a long service. Littlefinger smiled as if the night had been a lover and was now in the kitchen frying eggs for him. The High Septon began to speak. The words were old and strong. They gathered themselves and arranged themselves into a thing that could be taken into the day like bread. Ned felt for a moment that perhaps he had done it, had stretched a day that could be sliced into the pieces men could eat without choking. He would stand, he would walk, he would make the council take its seals in their hands and not think of blood as a thing one might spill like wine. Then the cry went up. It was small at first, a high thin note like a child's alarm at a bee. Fire. The word ran around the outer doors like oil, and men's heads turned of their own accord because men always turned to fire. The High Septon faltered. Barristan's head came up. The gold cloaks at the doorway moved without exactly deciding to. Ned felt the current under the floor change. "Remain," the High Septon said, and his voice had the weight of the city in it. And the poor obeyed him because the poor always obeyed when a strong voice told them to calm and they wanted to be calmed. But the far doors opened and smoke came in, but not much smoke. The smoke came in like a suggestion rather than a fact. People near the doors flinched back. The line of gold cloaks broke and formed again in a shape changed. In the burst of confusion, men moved who should not have been moving. A pair of fellows in tradesmen's clothes, unthreatening, moving toward the aisle near the side door. Janos Slint moved his men into position as if he had seen a map of the place in a dream. "Seraris Chieftiv." He looked to Barristan, and Barristan shook his head a hair. "Do not be a hero," he had told the boy. He had told him to be a door. The boy tried to be both, and for a breath accomplished neither. Ned looked at Cain, and Cain had already slightly interposed a shoulder between Sansa and the doorway. Tomard had set his foot to block the angle by which one might come at Arya from the left. "Remain!" The High Septon boomed again, but now some of the nobles were moving too, because nobles do not like to be near a thing they do not command. They moved toward the side of the hall where the smoke did not drift, and in moving they pushed, and in pushing they made a press. In a press, it is hard not to be moved. Ned felt the press move toward him as a breaking wave moves toward a rock. "Lord Stark," came a voice at his shoulder, and he turned and saw Varys, pale as unbaked bread. "There is a passage behind the statues that will bring you to a quiet yard. From there, a short way to the council chamber. Better to be there when they decide than anywhere else." Littlefinger was suddenly on his other side, his breath butter smooth. "Yes," Peter said. "Come, Ned." Let the High Septon calm his doves. "We will get you a safe cage." "Cage?" Arya said, so softly that only he heard. It was not mockery, it was knowledge. Ned looked at Barristan, and saw the old knight's eyes fixed on the queen, who was doing nothing and therefore doing something. She was still. She did not let her men be moved by a single glance, and in that she kept them steadier than oaths. Joffrey was not good at stillness. He looked like a boy who needed to piss while a sermon dragged. The hound had his head cocked, listening to something no one else could hear. Ned made a choice. He lifted the book. He took the letter. He gathered his daughters with his eyes. "We will go by the passage," he said. "Ser Ares." The young knight could not be two doors at once. "Tomard, Cain." A hand took his elbow. It was gentle. "No," Varys said. "Let your men keep your girls. Let the white cloak keep you." He met Ned's eyes and for once let him see something true in his own. "If the girls go with you, they will be taken with you. If they are to be taken, let them be taken toward another place." "What place?" Ned asked, and was angry suddenly that the eunuch would speak in riddles when there was no time for them. "The September," Varys said, and made small shapes with his fingers, the shapes of ideas. "The altar. The women who fancy themselves called wives of gods. I can make a god, a small, petty god of administrative power. Take offense if someone lays a hand on a girl under the nose of his sacred cloth. And offense, my lord, is sometimes as good as iron." He was right. Ned hated that. "Cain," Ned said. "Mordain. Keep them with you. Keep them in the light. If anyone touches them, scream for the seven until the statues get up and walk." Arya's eyes went huge in a face that remaining still grew thinner. Sansa swallowed. There was no time to comfort either. Ned turned and let Peter and Varys guide him behind the painted robes of the seven into a narrow corridor that smelled of damp stone and old candle ends. Ser Ares came behind, his white cloak dimmed in the dimness, his hand on his sword. The passage was short and had 3 bends in it. Littlefinger walked lightly, as if the stones appreciated him. Varys walked without sound. Ned walked as fast as his knee would allow. He thought of the floor of the September and the current in it and thought, with dry humor, that perhaps he would be dragged along in this river all the way to the sea, book and all. They came out into a small walled court where a tree grew, the same that had watched them yesterday, pale leaves looking like coins in the low light. 2 men stood there. One was Lannister Red, with a lion sewn large on his cloak. The other was Janos Slynt. "Lord Stark," Slynt said, and his tone was the tone of a man who had come to collect a debt and had found the debtor still with a little coin. "You'll be coming with us." Ser Ares stepped forward, a half step that was almost a whole one, and the Lannister man, Preston Greenfield, Ned saw now another of the white cloaks, laid a hand on his chest, a comrade's hand, and pushed lightly. "Easy," he said. "Do not be a hero, Ares." The words were wrong for his mouth, as if he wore another man's saying as well as the white. "I am sworn to," Ares began. "You are sworn to obey the Lord Commander," Preston said, and he smiled without malice. "And he has ordered peace. Let us make it an orderly peace. Lord Stark, for the good of the realm." "For the good of the realm," Slynt echoed with satisfaction, and Ned could have laughed if he had not wanted to put his fist through the man's teeth. Peter's hand was light on his sleeve. "Come, Ned," he said softly. "There is a better room for this discussion. This court is cold. Let them walk you somewhere warmer." Ned thought of a room with a window on the river, where men had made a plan. He thought of Cersei's stillness. He thought of Varys's eyes. He thought of Stannis on Dragonstone, reading a letter that would have gone out yesterday afternoon with a careful seal and being unmovable by it. He thought of Robb in the north and of the long roads down. He thought of Sansa and of Arya, with their septa to one side and their 2 men to the other, iron around them like prayer. He placed the book under his arm. He grasped the letter in his fist. He lifted his chin. "Very well," he said. "For the good of the realm." "Wise," Littlefinger murmured, and Ned did not look at him because he did not wish to see, in that moment, whether there was pity on that fox's face. They walked. Ser Ares came a pace behind, torn by 10 thoughts, and it made him flatter himself that he had chosen one. Varys walked like drift. Ned walked with the courage of a man who has decided that if he is to drown, he will not flail. They did not go far. The council chamber waited, round and with a great table, and it was empty except for the chairs and the idea of what had been decided there for 100 years. They did not take him there. They took him down a short corridor to a smaller room with a window that looked on water. The smell of the river came up. It made him think of new leaves in the north, which was like thinking of a dead man's hand squeezing his. "Sit, Lord Stark," Janos Slynt said with crude generosity. "We'll have you comfortable while we talk." Ned sat because he would not give them the pleasure of forcing him to. He placed the book and the letter on the table. He folded his hands above them. He waited. "Now," Peter Baelish said, and leaned with his elbows on the windowsill, not looking at the water but tasting the air off it like a man sampling wine. "We can talk of the shape of tomorrow. You have made a day today, Ned. That was fine work. But days are made of turning, and we will see if you can turn another. The Queen has this many men and this many more promises. You have that letter and that old knight and the devotion of a priest who has never tried to pay a bill with it. The coup. And Syl will say what it always says, the words that sound proper. The streets will say what they always say, the words that cost nothing. And then someone will push. It is better if the push is gentle and in the same direction we all want." "In whose direction do we all want?" Ned asked, stillness becoming his skin. "In the direction of peace," Varys said. "The sort of peace that keeps our heads on our shoulders while men far away move bright pieces that we can admire. Dragonstone, Highgarden, the West, Riverrun, Winterfell." He ticked them off as if they were spices on a merchant's list. "So, can you, Lord Stark, write a thing on a piece of paper that will make this day into 2 days? Will you write, 'I resign the protectorship pending the crown being properly seated on a head we can all salute without choking'? Will you write, 'I will go back to the north for a time to keep my wolves from eating anyone who does not deserve it'? Will you write, 'I will leave my girls here as pledge that I will not turn my west and seize a thing'?" "No," Ned said. He let the word drop like a stone into the river and heard it go down. "I will not write that. I will not trade my daughters for your quiet. I will not leave men I love to be gnawed by lions while I walk a long road and pretend that I am not walking to rescue them." "Ah," Peter said and looked pleased, as if a thing had gone exactly the way he'd known it would. "Then, Ned, you must accept that I cannot set my hand under your elbow any longer. It is not that I do not want to. It is that my arm is not that strong. Look at me." He spread his fingers. They were fine and clever, but they would not hold a falling man. "So be it," Ned said. "Perhaps I have another arm." "You have a knee," Slynt put in, with clumsy venom. "You have the north. This is not the north." He leaned forward. "This is the city. In the city, we do things the way the city does. We prick and we bleed a little and we laugh. And we go to sleep in beds that don't smell of sheep. You don't like that? Go home. But before you go home, sign something that leaves the Queen with a crown and your head with your neck." Varys sighed. It was very soft. "My dear Janos, you do talk as if the man's pride were a loaf of bread one can slice. Let the Lord Protector keep what face he needs to. Let him save what he cannot afford to lose. We can draft a thing. Peter, draft a thing." Peter pushed off the windowsill. His smile deepened. "The thing has already been drafted. It only needs a signature." He had it ready. He took it from his sleeve like a conjurer. He laid it on the table with the flourish of a well-practiced hand. Neat script, firm ascenders. Words that would taste like compromise and feel like rope. Ned read the first line and the second. He put his hand flat on the paper and imagined the sound the quill would make. From the corridor came a shout. More smoke. Not a trick smoke this time. The smell of burning tallow and pitch came with it. The hound's voice, rough and amused, cut the air. "If there's a fire, there's piss to spare in this city. Put it out before I do." Then another voice, thin and terrified. "They're taking the girls." Ned stood so fast that the chair legs shrieked on the stone. His knees stabbed his mind white. It did not slow him. He scooped the book under his arm and took the letter in his teeth because his hands were busy pulling his sword free. Ser Ares was already moving. Half the speed Barristan would have been, twice the speed of most men. Varys made a movement with both hands that was a prayer. Littlefinger did nothing at all, which, for him, was perhaps the greatest motion he had made all day. Ned went into the corridor and the heat hit his face. The smoke was not enough to choke. It would still do. The passage was narrow. The press at its end was no less. Tomard had his back to the wall and a boy by the collar, and the boy's eyes bulged like fish eyes. Cain had Sansa behind him, pale and stiff as winter water. Arya was not visible, and the knowledge of that went through Ned like a spear and like air. "Where?" he demanded, and the question broke on the press as water breaks on stone. "The side door," Cain said between his teeth. "The men in the Queen's livery. Ser Meryn, they tried to say he was to escort them." The septa squealed like a... He shut his mouth. He loved the septa in his thick way. Ned did not think. He moved. He pushed through the heat and the bodies and the robe and the sound of a child crying that was not one of his children. Ser Aerys dogged him, and this, at least, the young man did right. He kept his sword at half-draw, showing the steel without declaring war on God. The smoke bent, a hand, and he ducked it. They came to the side door, and the light outside was brighter than the light within, which should not have been possible because the day was not bright. The smoke made it so. In that light, for a moment, he saw Arya, small and fierce, with her little feet dug in and her teeth set into the wrist of a man with a lion on his sleeve. She did not see him. She was all teeth and grip and fury. The man yelped like a whipped dog. Ser Meryn's hand went to his hilt. Ned's went to Ser Meryn's wrist. "By the law," Ned said, and it was not a request. It was a naming of a thing that existed and did not need a man to wish it to. "By the law and by the seven, take your hands off my blood." Ser Meryn blinked, stupid, slow. A man already imagining the flattery he would need to bring to explain later why he had let himself be stayed. The Queen is not God," the High Septon's voice said from behind, and the old man could be there because he was the sort of old man who would be where he was most needed in the hour when men were stupid. "If you wish to test whose house this is, do so, and we will see if your arm is stronger than a god's." Ser Meryn was not bright, but he had animal sense. He released the hilt, the man whose wrist Arya had fastened. Dion groaned, and she let go because she had done him harm and did not intend to bite any further flesh unless it was offered. Sansa stood a step behind, an emptiness in her eyes that Ned would only fill later, in some other place, with some other words. "Back," Ned said to everyone. "Back into the light." He entered behind them. The smoke was no longer a trick. Somewhere a tapestry had caught. Flames leafed it up. Men beat at it with cloaks soaked in wine. The poor watched with the helpless watchfulness of those who cannot do anything and know they cannot. Cersei was not in the hall. Barristan was. He moved like a man who had been awakened and was already dressed. He did not look over his shoulder. He did not leave his place. By the time the flames were a black hanging mess and the air was a bit clearer, the hall had a different feel. Something had been tested and had not broken. Ned felt the day grip again under his feet. He saw the girls seated with Mordain and Cain and Tomard making a wall around them with their bodies, as if their flesh were brick. He took his place by the book and the will. Ser Aerys took his at his back. The council arrived late and pretending not to be. The seals were brought. The words were said. An interim was declared, the Lord Protector to keep the seal, the boy to be set a crown when the realm had been heard and the gods had been appeased, Stannis to be summoned to the city under promise of safe conduct, all parties to forbear to draw men to arms within the walls. It was words on a page, and men nodded, and the words made a structure around them like a scaffolding that might yet take weight. Under it, their desires continued to swell. Peter signed with a flourish. Varys signed with something like reluctance and like relief both. Pycelle signed and dabbed at his mouth. Barristan did not sign. He was not asked. Janos Slynt did not sign. He was outside glowering at nothing like a man who had planned to be given a role and had been told to fetch a jug instead. Ned signed. His hand did not shake. When it was done, when all that could be made neat was made neat and the rest pressed into corners with pious looks, Ned took his daughters into his arms, one at a time because he had only two, and held Sansa's shoulders and Arya's skull and breathed the air in their hair until his chest hurt not with smoke and not with grief but with love so stupid and so strong that it made everything else in the room look cunning. He released them because he must. Night took the city. Torches bloomed where day had been. The river sent up its sigh of rotten weeds and old coins. The red keep lit its windows and looked, from a distance, like a beast with 100 watchful eyes. Men went home to wives. Others did not go home at all. Boys ran through alleys with information and with loaves of bread stolen from doorstep cooling racks. The small folk told each other that the hand had stood up to the queen in the September and the gods had frowned at the queen and the queen had smiled anyway, and perhaps that meant the gods smiled too. Or perhaps that meant something else. It depended on whether the telling was done by a man who worked with wood or with iron. In a quiet room that had once belonged to a princess, Cersei Lannister sat in a chair and drank a cup of wine and did not taste it. Her palm still remembered her son's sleeve. She set the cup down very carefully. The hound stood with his shoulder to the wall, watching her with that lack of pity that is sometimes the kindest look a man can offer. "Tomorrow," she said softly, "we will do it my way." She did not look at him. She looked at the fire. Today was the Septon's way. Tomorrow, the city will remember whose gold its teeth bite. Sandor's scar bent with his mouth. Aye, and whose gold cloaks wag their tails. In his chamber in the Tower of the Hand, Ned Stark lit a single candle and opened Jon Arryn's book to the page where the names were a genealogy of a color that never changed. He sat in the chair as if it were a saddle and held himself as if he rode into snow. He listened to his daughter sleeping. He listened to a mouse work in the wainscoting. He listened to the city speak in its 1,000 unquiet dreams. He did not know if he had saved the day or only delayed its drowning. He did not know if Stannis would come into the city with righteousness or with knives. He did not know if Renly would plant a garden in the realm or sow it with soldiers. He did not know if Robb would remain a boy long enough to be a man. He did not know if he himself would see winter again and the courtyard where the weirwood bled light in its leaves. He knew only that he had told a truth in a holy place, and the city had not killed him for it. Yet, he laid his hand flat upon the book, and then, deliberately, he closed it. He blew out the candle. The room went dark all at once. He sat with the dark, unfrightened, because it had been a companion his whole life. After a time, he stood and went to the window and opened it. He let the night air, with its salt and its ash, come in. He was still standing there when the bells began to toll again. Not in fear this time, but as they did on the nights when the city buried a king and whispered the name of the next. He stood and counted them and did not count any names yet. He would keep his tongue behind his teeth, as he had told Arya to do, until the realm forced him to speak again. And in the alleys below, a girl with a packet of stolen tarts in her shirt slipped between a pair of gold cloaks with a grin too sharp to be pretty. A boy with hair black as a raven's wing turned a corner into a shadow he could not see out of. A man with green eyes wrote a name on a piece of paper and smiled as if it were a game. An old knight took off his boots and rubbed his feet and offered a prayer for a man he did not like and must save. A woman who had loved a king counted the beats of her heart and matched them to the crackle. A fire. The seven slept in their painted faces, and the old gods did not sleep at all, because trees do not sleep, they merely wait. The city itself turned on its side and exhaled, and drew breath again, and stared, and dreamt of crowns and wolves and the taste of blood in the mouth, which, for cities, is only the taste of iron in the air when a blade is lifted somewhere, and of honey on the tongue that lingers long after the sweet is gone.